In order to have a strategic advantage, you must first determine what your opponent is trying to do. You cannot fight what you do not understand. What makes this task more daunting is the hundreds or potentially thousands of opponents you'll face, by which a good portion of them act subconsciously and wouldn't be able to articulate to themselves what they are trying to do. While it may not be immediately obvious, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. To recap the three playstyles: brawlers wear you down and take space inch by inch, pokers bait mistakes by giving space and pushing back, and divers set up to increase their percentages finishing. Today we'll examine 6 factors as a framework to determine playstyle, because the faster you correctly assess, the more games you have with strategic advantage. Incorrectly assess, and you'll be pulling your hair out with your strategy trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Energy management, which is essentially how a player manages their gas tank of mental and physical energy to achieve their objective. Brawlers want to push the pace and empty as much of the gas as quickly as possible, sustaining a high energy level. Think of Nadal, who puts as much energy as he can into every ball all match long. Pokers often fluctuate, with lower energy to diffuse a brawler's higher energy, or use a lower energy to create the illusion of being vulnerable before raising their energy when counterpunching. Think of Galmonfils, who hangs back like a boxer leaning on the ropes, and then he explodes once attacked. Divers either use a ton of energy right out of the gates on either the serve or return, or lull you to sleep before slamming on the gas pedal. Diving all the time is not only predictable, but finishing requires concentrated bursts of energy, which cannot be sustained. The classic low-energy assassin is Pete Sampras, who mopes around half the time, then goes all out when he gets his opportunity. Is my opponent using energy all the time, or in spurts? Rhythm. To hit the same ball again and again, versus variance, changing shots are inverse to each other, as more variety disrupts rhythm. Brawlers want that who can hit more balls in a row type of contest that eliminates variance and thrives on rhythm, allowing the energy exchange needed to wear the opponent down. Pokers prefer variety, to create cat and mouse exchanges, like how a pitcher will go to the slider and knuckleball to make things messy, resulting in fewer home runs and lots of pop-ups off mishits, creating easy outs. Divers bend both ways depending on their skill set, as some use variety to position their favorite putaways, while others may prefer rhythm, as seeing one or two of the same pitch helps their eyes line up a big home run. Is my opponent trying to help or hurt the rhythm of a match? Space, whether captured in the short term or the long term, is the end goal for all styles, but the process for each style is different. Brawlers move forward to take space bit by bit. Only after enough space is created over several shots, the brawler can finish. When Nadal hits a drop shot or comes in for a put-away float volley, it's already assumed he's won the point before the final shot because opponent is scraping the back fence. Since space closer to the baseline is more valuable to dictate the point, brawlers will expend energy to hold that space. Pokers willingly drop back to give up space, but wisely pick their battles to move forward to take copious amounts of space back. Djokovic is famous for creating that wall-like feeling, but his constant up and back movement allows him to turn defense into offense on a moment's notice. Divers rarely give up space for long because it limits their options to finish the point, but are inclined to move forward fast and aggressively after a promising setup ball. Federer is most committed to attacking with his feet to close distance, at times making hard reads and being content losing some points. Is my opponent giving up space willingly or expending energy to hold it? Risk is taken based on the highest reward for a given style for a given stage of a point. Brawlers tend to be risk adverse because they excel when the point is in neutral, where the most energy exchange occurs. Brawlers still hit winners off weaker shots, or enough space was created from prior shots, but only take chances when losing the point is imminent. Pokers tend to take more risk on defense because the reward is big when the opponent is attacking. Some pokers may hit their average ball relatively hard, but will only go for safe targets and only take risk ripping to the corner when their opponent is out of position or off balance. This falls into the category of punishing mistakes versus creating their own offense. Divers are looking to transition from defense to neutral to offense to finishing the point as quickly as possible, and will take calculated risks through each of those transitions. If there is no pressure, a smart diver will progress through those stages without taking any unnecessary risk. Is my opponent taking risk at every stage of the point or specific scenarios? Body type influences base attributes on which players build their game. Brawlers must have some degree of strength or stamina, whether it's a strong core or height for leverage on the swing. On average, bigger and taller players have a higher capacity to brawl, at least from a stationary position. Pokers must have some degree of mobility, whether it's a quick first step or keeping a low center of gravity to change direction and deflect. On average, smaller and shorter players have a higher capacity to poke, being able to reposition frequently. These are both generalizations because Diego Schwartzman likes to brawl at 5'7", while Medvedev likes to poke at 6'6". But typically, if a player is built like Wawrinka or Serena, they will be a brawl dive or dive brawl combination instead of poke. Divers can come in all shapes and sizes, with some being explosive to move forward, while others are slower, more deliberate with balance and coordination. Is my opponent based on physique more or less likely to play a certain way? Racket may be the biggest determinant of style, as one must work within its parameters. This topic is so important that it will have its own dedicated section later in the series. But brawlers need consistent pace and prefer spin, so favor the larger racket heads with a higher swing weight but lower total weight to sustain that racket head speed. Any frame aerodynamically shaped to brush the ball vertically falls into brawler territory. Pokers need a racket that can stabilize incoming pace, so those with a decent mass along with a more horizontal aerodynamically shaped frame to swing through the ball is preferred. Usually the head size for these rackets aren't too small either, because that makes defense a much lower margin. But the main thing is a racket that isn't too head light, where it would possibly destabilize at contact and make deflections inaccurate. Divers need to finish points, which often helps using smaller, more focused sweet spots of the smaller head frames. Aside from that, either lighter or at a minimum a head light racket allows the diver to both hold their shot for disguise, achieve that whip through snap for a burst of speed, and have maneuverability inside the court. Although it may seem like a lot of factors, tennis isn't rocket science. You'll see these same patterns again and again, and may even develop new ones of your own. While this provides a head start to predicting playstyle, always stay grounded in reality of what's happening in the moment, because an opponent could be very well going to their B or C game, but if 3 or 4 of these factors line up, you'll be on the right track.